Okay, let me fix this. I am having all the technical difficulties. How are y'all today? Welcome to a special impromptu episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm your host, Jazz Monet. And yes, I am holding my microphone, but we'll get into that in a second. It's been a long week for me, and I did not want to let the week go by without stopping in and talking to you guys because I feel like a lot has happened. It's like a lot has happened and nothing at all. There have been things that have happened that we kind of predicted, and things that have. Can you hear me now? Okay. That is one of the things that's happening. Um, we're just gonna see how this goes. So for anybody who was paying attention to YouTube, I had the schedule for 11:30, and then I was like, I'm ready now. I'm gonna bump up the time. And then my mic stand broke. And so here we are. But anyway, yeah, if you are up watching me at this time of night, then one, you're probably a fan of me. You're probably also a fan of the Dallas Cowboys. So happy Fangirl Friday to everybody. It's almost like not even Friday anymore. But basically what Fangirl Friday is it's an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit more loosely about the team, get away from the technical things in terms of gameplay, what's happening on the field, and all the criticism of the roster moves and so on and so forth, and just chat as fans. And here's one thing that I'll say on Twitter. I put out my notice to the national media basically saying, hey, there are so many Cowboys content creators and there's so much Cowboys content out there that you can refer to if you're having trouble keeping up with the team or if you want to keep up with the team. Because, like, a lot of these national media platforms, they literally talk about the Cowboys every day in the A block. And then they get some very important details wrong. So, in that same vein, I'm going to extend the same advice to you all, the fans. Be careful where you get your information from. I was watching ESPN earlier this week, and yes, I watch ESPN on occasion. Essentially, I wake up very early, and so when I wake up, usually I end up watching Unsportsmanlike, then I watch Get Up, and then after that, I'll turn to Will Still, right? Um, and sometimes I'll watch First Take if it seems like something interesting is going to happen. But I'm watching Get Up, and they start talking about, are the Dallas Cowboys better or worse off than they were last season? And I'm like, okay, I'm interested in hearing their perspective on this. Um, and I was actually surprised by their answer. I didn't really expect them to necessarily say the Cowboys were better because, like, one thing we don't see from the national media is them heaping a bunch of praise on the team as a whole. Maybe individual players sometimes, but not the team as a whole. But they were like, oh no, the Cowboys are way worse off. Their offensive line has been decimated, and now they're putting rookie Tyler Guyton at center. And I was just like, okay, if you're going to claim that the Cowboys are worse off, you could at least mention something that's actually true. Like, there are so many questions about the running back room. Why did you even go to the O line? Who told you that? Who's doing this research? And then to say the O line has been decimated because we lost Tyler Biotish and replaced him with Tyler Guyton. First of all, that is 100% inaccurate. And even if we were replacing Tyler Biotish with Tyler Guyton, um, actually, let me not disrespect Biotish like that, because I was about to say, like, I wouldn't even really be mad, but like Guyton has never played center before, so I'm not gonna go there. But fact of the matter is, I'm just like, so y'all don't even know. Like, the Cowboys fan base is so excited about Guyton and BB, and y'all are trying to talk to the fan base, and y'all don't even know two of the most important draft picks that happened very recently. And so fans, like, sometimes the mistakes will not be as glaring and as obvious as that one was. So I just want y'all to be careful about where y'all get y'all's information from. There's so many people out there who are speaking on the team from an educated perspective, people who actually study the team, people who are actually in the building. Like, I'm doing girls talk, boys talk now, so I get an opportunity to watch a few minutes of practice, go to some press functions. Aisha Morrison is doing YouTube stuff. She's also on DLLS. You've got Will still going strong, Vaughn Party, Law Nation, Boss Cowboy. So many people that you can listen to, so that when the national media says things that's just blatantly wrong, um, you can catch it, first of all. And secondly, you actually know what's accurate. But one thing I will say is clearly they don't know who Guyton is now. And listening to them talk, you'd swear they've never even heard the name Cooper Beebe. But after next Sunday, I think they'll remember. I think after next Sunday, they'll know those names and they'll know them well. And they'll actually be mentioning them in the A block correctly. But uh, there's so much more to get into regarding that. Something else about Fangirl Friday is it's an opportunity to talk about other teams that I'm a fan of besides the Dallas Cowboys. So we are definitely going to circle back around to the Cowboys stuff after I get through a couple of shout outs and call outs, because there's a lot to talk about. It's a lot in a little bit. Like, it's a lot in the sense that I guess since there's nothing going on right now, the situation, with contracts and things of that nature is really occupying the minds of the fan base. But at the end of the day, I personally feel like a lot of that stuff is largely inconsequential. But we'll get into that in a few minutes. I want to do a few shout outs and call outs, and we're going to talk about one of our, I don't know if we want to call them a rival, but we're going to talk about one of our opponents in the NFC East and a headline that came out, and then we'll come back to this Cowboys talk. Oh, and with it being Fangirl Friday, I want to hear from you guys in the chat. So leave your comments, leave your questions. Let's talk about it. Hey, Vachi, nice of you to tune in. What are you doing up? Why, you were never up this late, but good to see you. Clement says Tyler Guyton has a tough assignment and Myles Garrett in Cleveland next Sunday. You know what, Clement? He does, but I'm so excited about it. Not necessarily that I expect him to like dominate Myles Garrett. I honestly don't know what to expect. But the thing about Guyton is, one, he's such a quick study, and you can watch him throughout the preseason games, and you can tell that people have been coaching him on his hands. He's been taking into account what they've been saying, and he's been making adjustments. And so I'm really eager to see what he brings to the table, because I don't think he's going to shrink in that spotlight. I think he's going to take the challenge head on. And I love his ferocity. I love his aggressiveness. And I mean, dude's a beast, both size wise and in terms of his athleticism. So I feel like we're going to learn a lot about Guyton very early in the season by how he handles that matchup. And I cannot wait to see it. I cannot wait to see it. But before we get into that, a couple of shout outs and call outs, and then we've got some stuff to discuss with the Philadelphia Eagles and Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts that I really want y'all's opinion on. I need to hear from y'all regarding this. So feel free to be active in the chat. And yeah. So first shout out is going to go to the Indiana Fever. There's some people who think I don't like the Indiana Fever. This is not true. I never had a problem with the Fever or Caitlin Clark. It was always the fans. And the fans just doing the most in terms of not wanting to give other players credit for the evolution of the WNBA. But the Indiana Fever, oh my God, for a team that started off 1-8, they have come out of this post-Olympic break with a damn vengeance. Like, I've never seen anything like it. So for anyone not familiar with the WNBA landscape, there's a few teams that are in the conversation for who they anticipate will be champions. So Connecticut Sun is usually in the conversation. Las Vegas Aces are obviously in the conversation. And Indiana Fever, they beat the Connecticut Sun yesterday. I don't remember if they beat the Aces or not. I know the game was close, and they definitely gave the Aces a run for their money. And then they beat the Sky today. Now, the Sky were without Kennedy Carter. And as ferocious as Angel Reese is, and as dominant as she is on the boards, Kennedy Carter brings something else to that team that Angel Reese cannot do by herself. So I'm not saying that they would have won the game. I just know it would have been a very different ball game had Kennedy Carter been out there. So if you see the scar and you're like, damn, the Sky lost by 19 to the Fever, like that's crazy. Yes, it was a little bit crazy because they didn't have a very important player on the court with them. But just watching what the Fever was bringing to the court, especially with them being the away team in this game, I'm not sure that that the Sky would have won even if Kennedy had been out there. So I just want to give credit where it's due. Acknowledge the hard work of Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever and everything that they've done to build their chemistry and figure out how to come into the second half of the season. They're trying to go from being like a team with a losing record that everybody's like, oh, well, it's Caitlin Clark's first season. We'll see what they do next year. And they're literally trying to fight their way into the playoffs, which statistically seems really difficult, but at this point, I really think they might do it because they're beating teams that people did not predict them to beat. So that's a shout out to the Indiana Fever. I also want to give a shout out to Ian Wheeler, rookie running back for the Chicago Bears. So if you know me, you know I'm a Caleb Williams fan. I'm a Caleb Williams stan, as a matter of fact. So I've been watching Hard Knocks, and I was really rooting for Ian Wheeler to make the 53-man roster, and he was doing good. And I'll say that he had two issues. One, he played football at Howard. Howard is a great institution. However, he didn't really get the foundation as a running back that a lot of Power Five and Division One colleagues might have gotten. Right, so he came in on a bit of a learning curve, and also from watching Hard Knocks, you could kind of see that culturally he was having to, try a little bit harder to fit in. So on the field and off the field, he was having a little bit of struggle. But I have a soft spot in my heart for athletic nerds. And so basically, this guy deferred his admission to medical school so that he could play football. So, in terms of athletic nerds, he's definitely upper echelon. And I was like, oh, I want to see this guy win so bad. Plus, yes, he's a cutie. But he was doing good. Like he was figuring it out in terms of the run game. He had a lot of issues with his pad level. He figured that out. We saw some really good things in terms of him learning how to run guys over and whatnot. And then their last preseason game, he was crushing it. He was doing great. And then he tore his ACL. Now, the team didn't get rid of him. He's on IR, so he's still around. So maybe next season he comes back and does something because he was showing a lot of promise. But, I just want to shout out Ian Wheeler and anybody who's in the Ian Wheeler fan club, so to speak. And yeah, you have a lot of support. You have a lot of love. We wish you a speedy recovery, and we hope you come back strong, Ian. So that's pretty much the shout outs and call outs. So before we get back into the Cowboys topics, I want to talk to y'all about the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen Hurts still fits into Fangirl Friday because I was a Jalen Hurts fan when he was in college. And I remained a fan of his as he came into the pros, and he's come into the starting role with the Philadelphia Eagles. Even though I'm a Cowboys fan, I do still have a lot of love and respect for Jalen Hurts. I wish him no ill will. However, I heard some things in a couple of sound bites that were really disappointing. So before we get to the sound bites, just this whole thing with Kellen Moore being their offensive coordinator, it's so confusing. Not necessarily that they picked him, right? Because last season they had coordinators with practically no experience. So at minimum, Kellen Moore has experience. That's something that they at least needed, right? But when you listen to people talk about Kellen Moore, it's almost like they've forgotten every single one of his shortcomings. And this is another one of those things where it's like there's so many content creators who have put out like actual film. It's not like people coming on the camera like this where there's no video to go with it and they're just like telling you what they think or telling you what they saw. There's actual breakdowns of Kellen Moore's play calling and the schemes that he would implement and showing what the issue was and how his decision making impacted the Dallas Cowboys in negative ways, despite them breaking records in terms of offensive numbers and things of that nature. People were like, hey, These are some of the things that this guy is doing that's actually hurting the offense and not really playing to Dak Prescott's strengths and not playing to the strengths of people who are on the Cowboys offense. Like, sometimes he's just doing too much. Sometimes he's trying to be too cute. Um, but like you listen to people talk about Kellen Moore now, it's like they are holding on to that boy wonder development arc for dear life. They will not let it go. Like they want him to be the guy so bad. And that they're like, Kellen Moore, he's gonna have Saquon Barkley, and I'm like, when did Kellen Moore ever show that he was like that good with the run game? Like, why do y'all think he's gonna make this amazing use of Saquon Barkley? Like, what is this coming from? Um, so not only that, but something I heard very recently, sometime this week, they were saying that they feel like Kellen Moore's play calling is going to really help Jalen Hurts because they see a little bit of Dak Prescott in Jalen Hurts. And so because Kellen Moore was so able to do so much with Dak Prescott, they feel like he's going to be able to do a lot with Jalen Hurts. First of all, First of all, I feel like Dak Prescott made Kellen Moore look good more than Kellen Moore made Dak Prescott look good. And a lot of that even just has to do with Dak Prescott's ability to process information. Quiet as it's kept, Dak Prescott is a really smart man. And so when you hear a lot of players talk about Kellen Moore and what he did in terms of the offense, it almost sounds like what he did was a little bit convoluted, a little bit too complicated. Um, and you hear guys talk about them having trouble being on the same page because of that. But I think Dak Prescott was able to decipher a lot of things and actually do a lot of good on the field, despite the confusion that was caused by Kellen Moore's play calling and how he installed a lot of things, right? And then one thing that I don't know if it's going to transfer, but Dak Prescott is one of the best quarterbacks versus a blitz. Jalen Hurts is one of the worst quarterbacks against the blitz. I don't know for sure that there's anything Kellen Moore can do to fix that. So while people are like, oh, yeah, we see a little bit of Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts can pick up the ball and run with it sometimes. That's the only thing that I can think of because I don't see the same quarterback when I look at them. But yeah, Dak Prescott will bust out the athleticism sometimes. So will Jalen Hurts. And so if you think that Kellen Moore has the ability to do something with that, okay, we'll see. But I feel like the ability to process information, also how good he is against the blitz, those are two things that Jalen Hurts has not proven himself to have that I think will make a big difference. And so for those people who are expecting Kellen Moore to turn Jalen Hurts into Dak Prescott, which first of all is hilarious, right? Because let me backtrack back into Cowboys land for a second because this is Fangirl Friday, so we can do that. We can be a little bit loose with the structure. One of the things that is just absolutely tickling me this week, listening to people talk about Dak Prescott and the contract issues, is all these people who were bashing Dak Prescott for not being good enough and not being the guy who could get them there in terms of getting the Cowboys to a Super Bowl, and they just loved harping on his mistakes and his shortcomings and talk about how he didn't deserve to be paid what he was being paid. And now a lot of these same people are going on national platforms and spewing all sorts of NFL fan fiction about Dak Prescott going to their team of choice. If I hear one more fantasy why can't I talk? If I hear one more fantasization about Dak Prescott going to the damn Raiders, I'm going to literally vomit. You got people like Kimberly Martin and Molly Karam just gushing over the idea of Dak Prescott going to the Giants. And I'm like, y'all have got to be kidding me. Y'all have got to be kidding me. Um, but yeah, that's just been interesting. It's also been interesting hearing the same people who just would not let go of Dak Prescott's interceptions talk about, oh, Kellen Moore's going to be able to do so much with Jalen Hurts, Dan Orlovsky. Um, yeah, it's just wild how people will just the selective memory among the national media is bananas. But anyway, I digress. getting back to this issue with Jalen Hurts. So I was talking about, y'all are leaving a lot of comments, and I like it's triggering my anxiety because I want to read them all, but I'm gonna get to them. I'll do some scrolling later. But thank you for being active. I am gonna get to your questions. But yeah, so when it comes to the processing of information, for anyone who had any questions about Jalen Hurts and his ability to do that, he did an interview with 94.1. Hold on, let me see the name of this radio station. I don't want to get it wrong. I'm about to use some of their content, so I want to at least respect them enough to get their name right. 94 WIP. It's a sports radio station in the Philly area. Um, and they interviewed Jalen Hurts, and he talked a little bit about some of the differences that he's already noticing since working with Kellen Moore, and also not having Jason Kelsey around. And before I say anything else, I'm gonna just play this for you guys. And as you're listening to it, feel free to just go in the chat and share your thoughts on what we're hearing, because there were a lot of things that went through my head when I heard this, and I just want to see if we're on the same wavelength here. So here we go. Sharing the screen is a process. Yeah, YouTube. I'm gonna expand this, and we'll.
Yeah, definitely. More nitty gritty stuff from me, Jalen. The pass protection difference between this year and last year. Now you're working with a new center. How has it been working with Cam Jurgens as your center? And how do you like the new pass protection scheme?
I don't know if it's necessarily new. I don't know if that's the word, but I think there's a different approach in some areas and some facets. I think Cam has really done a really good job, just taking that role on and really taking on the responsibilities of what comes with leading that group. I think in the end, I think when you look at this upcoming season and what you may have seen from years past, it's just different autonomy in different places. We had a great player here, Jason Kelsey, who took on a lot of responsibility.
Listen to this part.
And a result of that, I was told not to worry about a lot of things. And so my eagerness to learn and all of that over the years, kind of was halted because of who we had. But now times are different, and I'm excited for that journey for this football team.
Jalen, we're excited for it too.
So I'm gonna pause right there. I'm gonna go back a few seconds, and just in case you were like, "Did he just say?" Yes, I'm gonna go back a few seconds and listen to what he says after he talks about, the role that Jason Kelsey played when he was there, and the difference with him not being there.
Well, not to worry about a lot of things, places. We had a great player here, Jason Kelsey, who took on a lot of responsibility and a result of that, I was told not to worry about a lot of things. And so my eagerness to learn and all of that over the years, kind of was halted because of who we had. But now times are different, and I'm excited for that journey for this football team.
Jalen, we're excited for it.
Okay. So essentially, he said that with Jason Kelsey being there, he was told, quote, not to worry about a lot of things, and that his eagerness to learn was halted because of who he had. And I'm like, what? Brian Bradford, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so somebody is on the same wavelength with me. So I had to look into this a little bit further. So I found this article on ESPN.com that dug a little bit deeper into that quote and that interview and what exactly happened with Jason Kelsey. So this is an article that was published yesterday morning on ESPN.com, written by Tim McManus, who's an ESPN staff writer. And if you scroll to about the middle of the article, he says, this is a quote from Jalen Hurts. "It's been a role that I've been waiting on. I know we've had a well-respected Hall of Fame guy who's been doing that, and now we have the opportunity to do that. It's something I've been wanting, and I think that's how it's supposed to be." He says this in reference to his desire to assume more command of the offense. So the article goes on. In his interview with WIP, Hurts praised Jurgens for doing a really good job in just taking that role on and leading the offensive line. And then skip. Hold on, where was the other part? Maybe I need to go earlier. Okay, here it is. So he repeated the quote, which I'll read one more time as well. He said, I think in the end, when you look at this upcoming season and what you have seen in years past, it's just different autonomy in different places. We had a great player in Jason Kelsey who took on a lot of responsibility. And as a result of that, I was told not to worry about a lot of things. And so my eagerness to learn over the years kind of was halted because of who we had. But now times are different, and I'm excited for that journey and this opportunity. So the article continues. Kelsey served as the maestro up front for 13 seasons in Philadelphia. He took the bulk of the responsibility off the quarterbacks, including Hurts, when it came to identifying blitzes and setting protections. With Kelsey retiring this offseason, giving way to Cam Jurgens, a third-year player out of Nebraska, Hurts has been open about his desire to assume more command. And then later it says the Eagles struggled against the blitz last season. Hurts threw the most interceptions in the NFL against the blitz in 2023 and went from 9th to 30th in touchdown rate. That was a big part of why the offense fell off down the stretch as Philadelphia limped to a 1-6 finish following a 10-1 start. So all of this, if I was like really following the Philadelphia Eagles, right? All of this would be like red flags for me. We're bringing in an offensive coordinator that's kind of known for having a somewhat of a complicated approach to their offense. And you've got a quarterback that, by his own admission, is not used to taking command of the offense, has had someone else doing things like identifying blitzes. And he's got a new center in that role who himself doesn't seem to be used to doing that sort of thing. So I'm almost kind of expecting somewhat of a flustercluck in Philadelphia this season, at least for the beginning of the season, because I'm just like, okay, you essentially have a quarterback who is still learning the types of things that he needs to know in order to execute this offense properly. And so while acknowledging a comment that I see here in the chat, yes, Jalen Hurts went to a Super Bowl. Who cares? I don't know why people keep forgetting that, like, the playoffs, the NFL postseason is a single elimination tournament, essentially. So while you can be happy for your team or for your favorite players for making it to a Super Bowl, it does not say as much about an individual as I think a lot of people want it to say. So did the Eagles accomplish something great by making it to a Super Bowl? Absolutely. Does the fact that they made it to a Super Bowl mean that Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott? It does not. And if it did, then the shit that happened at the end of last season would negate all of that anyway. Like, if you want to go season by season and be like, well, look at what this person did in this season, that proves who's better, then okay, Dak Prescott is still definitely the better quarterback on paper at this point. So it's just all kind of ridiculous. I'm not going to use that as a determining factor, especially when one of these quarterbacks is on record as saying that he's still learning how to do things like identify blitzes. So Cowboys Nation, yes, I'm speaking specifically to you. What do y'all think? Clement said, what does Jason Kelsey have to do with you not learning or worrying about things? So here's the thing, Clement. He said he was told not to worry about certain things. So I'm really wondering what role Sirianni or maybe their past offensive coordinators played in that, you know? Um, so I really doubt that it was like Jason Kelsey being like, hey, don't worry about this. It really sounds like it was part of just the culture and how they were implementing the offense to be like, hey, Kelsey's got this. All you need to do is listen to what he says, and don't worry about the rest. And here's my thing. Not only based on my experience as an athlete and as a competitor, but even from a lot of the things that we hear Jalen Hurts say about himself, I'm wondering, like, okay, even if you were told not to worry about certain things, how do you not take it upon yourself to still learn and get better at these things? Because I know people who don't play football at all. And even they put work into being able to look at film and identify blitzes and identify formations and make predictions about what's about to happen based on where people are placed on the field. So when Jalen Hurts says he was told not to worry about certain things, I'm like, okay, so you were told not to worry about it. And at no point during the past couple of years did you say, you know what? I know y'all told me not to worry about this, but just in case Jason Kelsey goes down, just in case I end up with an offensive coordinator who doesn't know what they're doing, I'm going to figure this stuff out. I'm going to take the time to learn. Yeah, maybe I won't need to use it during the game because of how the system that y'all have set up where Jason Kelsey does everything, but I want to make sure that I have these tools in my toolbox. How did that never become a thing? I have to admit, as someone who respects Jalen Hurts, this was one of the most disappointing interviews, one of the most disappointing sound bites that I've come across. So let's see. What else did y'all have to say? Okay, it's just Eagles fans in the comments bickering. Hey, Sid, it's good to see you. Thanks for popping in. We're just talking a little bit of football. Dave said, if Dak is better, why did Jalen Hurts beat Jordan Love and Dak lost with him in the playoffs? So once again, you're talking about two different situations. I'm talking about whole bodies of work. So yeah, one game does not determine, and that's for any quarterback. This isn't just a Dak Prescott thing. You can't be like, oh well, this team beat this other team, so the quarterback must be better than this other quarterback whose team didn't beat that team. That's not how it works. I'm talking about actual skill sets. I'm talking about what they bring to the position, not their record, not one game here, not one game there, not what happened in a single elimination situation. I'm talking about full body of work, what we know about both athletes, and in this situation, what they've said about themselves is what I'm referring to. And you know what? Um, you don't have to think that Dak Prescott is better. If you think Jalen Hurts is better, like, you do you. Like, I don't really have any interest in continuing this because, like, and I say this because, like, I've literally spent the last 2 years making the same argument over and over again. And I know you might have never seen any of my content before, and you might not, but I'm really over the conversation because when it comes to full, complete skill sets, I have yet to see anybody or hear anybody put anything out there that actually makes sense in terms of, no, this is why Jalen Hurts is a better quarterback. Like, they refer to individual games, individual accomplishments, single seasons, but I don't see anybody being like, yeah, Jalen Hurts is better at this skill. Jalen Hurts brings this to the team in terms of what he's able to do. It's like winning games is a team thing. Getting to the Super Bowl is an organizational thing. And I mean, quite frankly, we've seen some of the issues with the Cowboys as an organization. So I mean, and that I won't deny. There's a lot of people out there who were like, yo, if the Cowboys did some of the things that the Eagles do organizationally, yeah, we might see some different results. We might be dealing with a different kind of team. So yeah, to me, that's, yeah, be proud of your Super Bowl, do all that. But that doesn't make Jalen Hurts a better quarterback. Um Still more bickering. So with that being the case, it seems like those of us who are actually paying attention to the different components of the story are on the same page in terms of the surprise about what Jalen Hurts said, and also the confusion in terms of him being a quarterback, a first string quarterback. I really need to stop fidgeting. My ADHD is like going crazy, and I'm making a lot of noise. But yeah, it was a really surprising soundbite. It's one of those things that, especially from Jalen Hurts, even if it is accurate, I would have never expected him to say out loud. And I'm really just like, what on earth happened that made him think that he should even put that out there? Like, I wonder if he even realized how that sounded, how that came off. And I'm also wondering if we're going to see a little bit of attempts from the Eagles organization to try to like downplay that or backtrack it at all, or if they're just going to like let it linger out there. Because I mean, there's already questions about Sirianni. There's already questions about just the cohesiveness of this coaching staff, right? So I'm really just wondering how the Eagles as an organization will react to that news. Good evening, sports for you. How are you? So, with that being said, let's get to the Cowboys of it all. Roster cuts came out this week. I feel like there's been so much content out about it. I don't really feel the need to like dive into it. And I got to talk a little bit about it on Girls Talk Boys Talk. So if you head over to the Dallas Cowboys YouTube channel, the last episode of Girls Talk Boys Talk this week that came out, was that yesterday? This week has flown by. I was on there. We talked a little bit about the roster. So if you're curious about my thoughts on the roster as a whole and some of the concerns of the team, you can refer to that. But I will just take this time to say, since it is Fangirl Friday, I hate that we lost Julius Wood. I really wanted him to be a part of the Dallas Cowboys. Like, he was one of my favorite people to watch during the preseason. And even when I initially said that I wanted us to keep him, I knew it was a long shot because he was in a room with a good amount of depth. The need for him just wasn't as great as the need for certain players in other positions, like the tackle positions, for example. So decisions had to be made. And I get it. And I understand it's a business. And I understand there has to be equity among the NFL organizations and things. But oh man, Wood was showing so much promise. He definitely popped off the screen. Like as soon as I saw that they weren't keeping him, I was like, he's not gonna clear waivers. And he didn't. You know, the Titans claimed him. Um, and I don't remember what they were in the order, but like it was pretty early on. Like they didn't waste any time making sure that they got him. So hopefully he has a great season. I hope he does great things. I hope he develops well, has a great career. And who knows? Maybe he'll make his way back to the Cowboys or some other team that I end up following. Because if you know me, you know I do end up watching other teams. This year, it's the Cowboys and the Bears mostly that I'm looking at. Um, I'm not really looking at anybody in terms of college. Watching the Colorado Buffaloes, obviously, but I don't have like a bunch of college teams I'm watching like I normally do. Um, but yeah, shout out to him. Now as far as everything else, I think I mostly feel good about things. You know, definitely impressed with the moves that were made on the defense over the past, I guess since training camp started, you could say, you know, because I feel like during the off season, especially before the draft, there was a lot of disappointment among fans about how the Cowboys were handling offseason moves. And a lot of that was lingering disappointment from the game against the Packers and just anticipation of them maybe not drafting in ways that the fan base approved of, right? And the draft happened. We got some players that we were excited about. And so you kind of started to feel the hope enter the chat a little bit when it came to Cowboys Nation. Um, but people were still wanting to see more, you know. And what's interesting is we went from an organization that was like, no, you're not all in, stop using that phrase, to ending up with so much talent on the roster that, you know, it was hard for a lot of people to really predict how cuts were going to go. Um, and on paper, it seemed like it was kind of a tough job to figure out who should go, who should stay. I actually got one thing right. I hate making predictions, but I did predict that Hendershot would not be around. And that was actually one thing that I got correct. I think I got more than that, but I don't remember. But yeah, like if you listen to most content creators talk about, you know, before the roster cuts actually happen, you know, there's a lot of back and forth about quite a few guys on who were on that list. So I think that was the biggest surprise for me in terms of just how things turned around in terms of the moves that the Cowboys are making. But if you're like me, you're kind of like, what the hell is going on with the running back room? What is our plan here? What exactly are we going to do? What are we expecting? And I bring that up just to really empathize with you guys. I don't have any answers. I am waiting for September 8th to see what happens, just like y'all are. Because one thing that we know, the run game is still important. I think because of how much running backs themselves have been downplayed over the last couple of seasons, the importance of the run game in a lot of fans' minds, at least, has been downplayed, right? Um, but one thing that I think is going to happen this season that'll be really interesting is that you're seeing a lot of skill players add more tools to their toolbox, right? You're seeing running backs learn how to run routes, make catches. We're seeing wide receivers um, just, line up in the backfield, learning how to run the ball, take handoffs. Um, and so we're seeing a lot of crossover in that sense. And I think as coaches figure out how to be more creative with the players who are able to do that, I think we're going to be reminded of the importance of the run game. And there are some people who never forget. Props to y'all. But just like, I'm just talking about, the middle of the road general fans who watch the game for fun, maybe don't do a lot of studying of film, might watch film studies from other people, but don't do a lot themselves. You don't hear a lot of excitement about the run game. And maybe that's the Cowboys thing. Like maybe I'm getting this all wrong, but just in general, I don't hear a lot of excitement about the run game, except for the unfounded excitement about the Philadelphia's run game. The Philadelphia Eagles run game and what they're expecting. I really feel like that's gonna be a disappointment. Sorry to the Eagles fans who are listening, but Kellen Moore run game. I I think around week 4 or 5, we're gonna start hearing a lot of, man, he's really wasting Saquon Barkley. I feel like we're gonna hear a lot of murmurs of that. But outside of that, we don't hear a lot of excitement about the run game. But I feel like towards the middle of the season, end of the season, just league wide, we're gonna see a lot more of that be just show its face in terms of how important it is. Um, but with the Cowboys, I don't know what to expect. So, Dalvin Cook is on the practice squad, and some people are wondering what that means. Is that putting anybody on notice? This was something else we talked about on Girls Talk, Boys Talk. I don't think it's putting anybody on notice. I really just think it's acknowledgement of the fact that Ezekiel Elliott has had a lot of injuries. Rico Dowdle has had a couple of injuries. And Deuce Vaughn just had a hamstring issue. And for several reasons, um, when running backs suffer one injury, a lot of times they end up suffering another one relatively soon after. So I really just think it's them being careful. Now, why they picked Dalvin Cook of all people, I couldn't tell you specifically. During Mike McCarthy's press conference, he made reference to, what did he say? He said appreciation for Dalvin Cook's career. And I think he also said something about them having interest in Dalvin Cook for a long time. And I'm like, what, since 2018? Is that what you mean by a long time? It just really feels like one of those things where they seem to really believe that he can turn back time and reverse the clock and be the type of player that he used to be. Um, and if he believes that about himself and other people believe him, I will not knock that. By all means, manifest, believe in yourself, work hard, do all the things. I'm just gonna have to see it before I buy into it, because the last season that we saw him, he was getting passed around to a few different teams. And it seemed like him not being able to find a home had a lot to do with his lack of production and him just not really providing a lot of oomph in terms of the run game. So, uh, yeah, we'll see what happens in terms of that. So, I do wish they had found somebody with a little bit more promise, but I mean, hey, that's where we are. What else is going on that side of the ball? Outside of that, I feel like there's not a lot of bad questions. We have questions about the O-line in terms of, okay, what exactly are we going to see from this offensive line when they start going up against real, quote unquote, real defenses, right? But I feel like there's more excitement than dread. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens against the Browns. Um, and then, we know CeeDee Lamb is wide receiver one. But how are these other receivers going to be used around him? Like, are we going to expect to see the same sort of corner route attempts from Brandon Cooks? How is Flournoy going to fit in? Is he going to work his way up the ranks, or is he going to be kind of like just a snap here and there, an attempt here and there, and we don't hear much from him? So that'll be interesting. I like Flournoy. I would like to see a lot from him. As for CD himself, when we talked about his offseason on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, one of the things that I didn't mention was my concern over his workout regimen. And I won't hop on this a lot because I have a tendency to go kind of overboard in terms of worry. Brian Bradford says youthful O-line. Yes, I think that's a good word to describe them. But here's the thing that concerned me. I heard that he was working out for like 3 hours per session, like 6 times per week. That doesn't allow a lot of time for recovery. And if you've put on 15 pounds of mass, a lot of that being muscle, then that means you've put a lot of stress on your body and you need recovery. Also, I'm going to just say there are some things that I saw in some of those workout videos that concerned me a little bit in terms of sheer force on some very important joints. Um and I don't know, maybe a little bit of it is PTSD. Dr. Reef worked with another one of my favorite players, and that player had just a rash of injuries during the time when he was working with Dr. Reef. And, just me, based on what I was taught in terms of athletic development and performance enhancement, um, just some of the things that Dr. Reef um, employed in his training, what they were experimental things and potentially dangerous. And so I saw some of those same things with CD, and I'm just like, if something happens to him, people are going to attribute that to him holding out and quote unquote not being in football shape or football condition. They're not going to go back to these videos and be like, oh, look at this move that he's being told to do here. That could actually put unnecessary stress on his knee and on his ankle. They're not going to do that. I will, because I'm looking at it. I'm just like, why is this man making him do that? So I definitely, knock on wood, don't want anything to happen to CD, but it's just that's the only thing that I'm worried about. Just hearing about him putting that much stress on his body, looking at some of the things that were happening in some of these videos, and I'm just like, oh God. But hopefully it's a good season. Everybody remains healthy. Everybody performs well. And we get some good results. I really feel like this could be another season where we go 12 wins or maybe even more. Now, I feel like I should address the elephant in the room, especially considering what I put in my thumbnail about Dak Prescott's contract and some of the comments that were made this week related to that. And I kind of feel like I should pull it up, but I feel like everybody has seen the clip of Dak Prescott saying that he no longer buys into what Jerry Jones says in the media. And so here's my thing. The reason why that doesn't really concern me or bother me at all is because this isn't something new. However, Dak Prescott feels about Jerry Jones, that's he was already feeling that way. We're just now hearing about it, but he was already feeling that way. So it's not like his feelings have changed in regards to how he feels about Jerry Jones. It's not like his relationship with Jerry Jones has changed. This is just news to us. So people are like, what does this mean for the team? And I'm like, nothing, because this was already the case. Whatever we thought about Dak Prescott and about this team last weekend is still the same this weekend. Dak Prescott just chose to share something with us that we were not already aware of. So I'm not really concerned about that. And as far as, there are people like, oh, well, Dak's got to sign this week. No, he don't. He doesn't have to do anything. Do I want him to stay with the Cowboys? Absolutely. Will he? I have no idea. I'm not about to sit here and pretend like I have insight into the men that I don't even know, who are making business decisions that I've never had any sort of experience with. Like, the factors that they're using to make these decisions, and by these decisions, I mean, Jerry Jones and whoever else is in the room deciding what they're going to offer Dak and how they're going to approach the situation, and Dak deciding what he's going to accept. The factors that they're using to make those decisions, I have no clue. And the people who are pretending like they do, it's really assumptions. Like, a lot of the stuff that we're hearing in the media about this situation is assumptions based on other assumptions. We don't know. Like, there are some people who are like, maybe Dak Prescott is sick of being with the Cowboys and he doesn't want to deal with the BS anymore. Maybe he doesn't care. Maybe because of everything that he's been through in his life and who he is as a person, it really doesn't faze him as much as people think it does. Maybe he's trying to get paid as much as possible. Maybe there's something in terms of structure or in terms of environment that he's looking for. We don't know, because we got to remember something about Dak in this area is, not only is he a quarterback, but he's a philanthropist. There are so many organizations that he works with and that he does charity work for. Like, he's a chairman for, I don't want to say which organization because I don't want to get it wrong, but he has roots in this community that he has these connections because of who he is, but they're not on the field things. So there are a lot of things that I'm sure he considers when it comes to whether or not he will stay in Dallas. And so, because there are so many variables, and this is also the reason why I hate making predictions in general, there's so many variables, and I'm just kind of like, I don't want to pretend like I know what's going on. I don't want to pretend like I know what Dak Prescott is thinking. I don't want to pretend like I know what's best for him. But I'm going to say, as a fan, do I want to see him stay with the Cowboys? Yes. Do I think the Cowboys are in trouble if he leaves? Absolutely. Partly because of the dead money that they're going to have to deal with, right? So $40 million in dead money next year, whether Dak stays, goes, retires, moves to Italy, whatever. So it's going to be tough for them to bring somebody in who even has enough experience or the skill set that they would need to continue carrying this team. And so I don't want to see this team suffer. Like, I've come to love the Cowboys, so I don't want to see them have to deal with quarterback purgatory or have to deal with Cooper Rush or Trey Lance leading the offense for a full season. I also don't want to see CeeDee Lamb have to deal with some half-baked quarterback who has no clue what they're doing. I feel like CD deserves better. So, Dak and CD are two of my favorite players, and I want to see them win. Um, so yeah, I hope they figure it out. But if they don't, I mean, hey, Jerry Jones has been talking about this can that he's been kicking down the road for years. I don't know how big this can is. I don't know what's in the can. I don't know how much it hurts to kick it, but he's been kicking it down the road and he's tired of it and he's trying to find a way out of it. So that in and of itself might end up playing a big role in what he's able to do in terms of keeping Dak here. So that's what we know. And outside of that, I really think when it comes to a lot of these sound bites and a lot of the bickering in the media, hold on, let me see if I still have that sound from Dominique Foxworth. Because Dominique Foxworth gave Jerry Jones some advice that I really wish he would take into account. I think I deleted it. Oh wait, no. Is it here? I think I have the sound and not the video. I wish I had the video.
Pay that man his money and be quiet.
Let's pay the man his money and be quiet. I feel like that's what needs to happen. But in terms of the impact on the team, I really feel like a lot of the stuff that's happening in the media, it impacts the fans more than it impacts the actual team. because like I said, whatever it is that's going on there, it's something that by the time we hear about it, they've already dealt with it. They already know about it. Whatever impact it's going to have on them, it's already happened. Now, what we don't want is to see things get worse. We don't want to see things be perpetuated in that sense. Absolutely. So I hope that going public doesn't inspire Jerry Jones to do something more extreme or something more dramatic. That could be a nightmare. But that's another one of those things that we have to wait and see. But for right now, somebody was like, "Are you worried about the relationship between Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones?" Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Let's see. Sports for You said Dak would be committing free agency malpractice, not waiting till the offseason. I agree. I think there are ramifications not only for him, but also for just quarterbacks in the NFL as a whole that I think if he didn't do it, it could change the trajectory of a lot of things. Um, and if he does enter free agency, that's not to say that the Cowboys still couldn't get him, that they still couldn't sign him. It just means we would have a better idea of his market value, and that would give other quarterbacks an idea of their market value. So I don't think him going to free agency is the end of the world for the Cowboys the way a lot of people seem to think it is. But I do think that it'll give everybody a lot of information to work with, and that there are more people who are going to be impacted by it than just Dak Prescott and just the Cowboys. And so, especially when did he? I don't remember when that interview came out, but he was talking to the media relatively recently, was sometime this summer, and he said something about the sense of responsibility that he felt to other quarterbacks in the league. And when he said that, that was what made me think that he was going to go ahead and enter free agency, because I'm like, okay, if you're thinking not only of yourself, but about doing right by other quarterbacks in the league, then one of the best things that you could do is to get an honest survey of the market by entering free agency and letting teams bid on you and seeing what your particular skill set is actually worth. So, yeah, I think he's going to enter free agency. And then after that, hey, we'll see what happens. Brian Bradford said, "You think he embellished his workout, meaning every day for 3 hours?" So Brian, and for anybody who maybe wasn't paying attention, it's I said that I heard that CD Lamb was working out 3 hours a week, 6 days a week. No, 3 hours per session, 6 days a week. I'm sorry, I need to go to bed, y'all. So I don't even know if that information came from him. So I don't want to say he embellished. All I was saying is that if that is true, I am concerned. So we'll just wait and see. Like I don't know the details of his routine, of his program, of how much time he spent doing what. I just know there were some things I saw in the videos that concerned me from a movement perspective. But did he embellish his workout? I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't know where that information came from. I don't know where a lot of the information came from, in terms of what he did, what he didn't do, and what he's capable of now. So I, like a lot of people, am just going to wait and see what he brings to the field. Eastside Herald, I need you to chill with the CD Lamb slander. No name calling in my chat. Chill out. I'm just seeing if there's anything else I want to comment on before I get out of here, because I do need to get up early, and we've been on here for an hour. I thought this was gonna be like a 30-minute stream, y'all. Okay, now I've scrolled back to where y'all were bickering with the Eagles fans. So I think that's about it. So a little bit of what's coming up. I'm gonna have Brian Broaddus back live with me this Sunday afternoon. I don't know exactly what time. So, let me say this. I always forget to say this, and other content creators get on me about this. If you're watching this and you have not subscribed, please subscribe, hit the like button. It helps me out. And turn your notifications on, because if you are new to my channel, I do work full time. So I go live when I can. I post content when I can. I'm not at a point where I can like set a schedule, because I just have too many other responsibilities and priorities in my life, right? So subscribe if you like what you're hearing. Turn your notifications on so that you don't miss anything. And also so you don't miss me and Brian Broaddus this Sunday afternoon. All I know is it's going to be this Sunday afternoon. I don't know exactly what time, but as soon as I know, you guys will know. I'll probably announce it on Twitter first. And then at some point, I'll put, the little upcoming thing in YouTube that tells you when I'm going to be going live. So don't miss that. Anytime I have Brian on, y'all go in the chat and y'all ask a lot of great questions. He loves answering those questions. I love answering those questions. So definitely be prepared to show up and have a good conversation with us about the roster cuts, roster moves, and what we're expecting during that week 1 game. And I might get his opinion on this Jalen Hurts situation, just because, Brian is a former scout. And, I had somebody tell me, like, when you have Brian Broaddus on, we only want to hear about Cowboy stuff. But I'm just like, he offers so much insight into so much of the sports world in general, that for someone like me, who I love sports in general, I feel like when I have the opportunity to talk to someone who has so much experience, so much insight, so many connections, like, yeah, I'm going to ask these questions. So with him being a scout, with him being a person who's, walked the halls of so many NFL organizations and knows so many people, I'm like, yeah, I am kind of curious about his perspective and what he thinks happened in terms of a professional quarterback being like, yeah, I was told not to worry about certain things. It's kind of crazy to me. Miss Matrix says, girl, I love your show and vibe. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm a night owl, so I really like the late show. Yes, when I go late like this, that means I was working all day. And before I go to bed, I'm in my pajamas. I'm about to go wash my face and get to bed because I got to get up early. But yeah, sometimes before I go to bed, I'm be like, let me turn the camera on and talk to y'all real quick. So sometimes it's a loose format like this. Other times I have guests, and other times I'll have like cool video clips and an actual structure. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. So, but yeah, we'll have Brian on, and then I'm going to try to go live more next week. But what's going on is I'm still trying to get the hang of working and also fitting Girls Talk, Boys Talk into my schedule. Because that also means going to practice, which I didn't realize at first, right? When my first episode I did with them, like I did the episode and then I left, and they were still at camp in Oxnard. So in my mind, I was just kind of like, okay, this is what it is. They didn't tell me anything about credentials. As a matter of fact, I asked somebody at credentials, I asked somebody about credentials, and I was like, yeah, does this let me do anything besides do the show? And they were like, no. And so then when they were having the public practices this week, I get this email and they're like, oh yeah, you can watch practices and you can go to press conferences. And I'm like, oh. So fitting all of that in my schedule, along with working and doing the show, I'm just balancing it all is all. So my schedule as far as YouTube might be a little bit wonky for a little while, but I definitely don't want to abandon you guys. And I want to keep having fun episodes like this. So happy Fangirl Friday. It's now Fangirl Saturday. Have fun watching football this weekend. There's so many good college games this weekend. And yeah, we'll be in touch next week to talk about week 1 of the NFL regular season. Unity said, we're gonna pull up when you go live. Yes, y'all do. Y'all always show up. Thank you so much. So on that note, thank you to everybody who showed up. And if you're watching this after the fact, thank you for watching. Once again, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and I'll see y'all Sunday. This has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I'm Jazz Monet, and I'm out.